We are your home theater and AV questions answered. This is AVRant. Want your home theater or AV question answered by Tom and Rob? Send it to question@avrant.com. Welcome to AVRant. I'm Tom Andry, and I'm here with
Rob H.
Grant. We'll have picks for this one as well. Given the deep price drop on Marantz SR7010 receivers, he's ready to stop dithering and wants to buy one, but he wants to be sure the amp assignment options will let him do what he wants. I'm sorry. What he wants is to have the 7010 only power the overhead Atmos speakers and surround backs, and have his external Emotiva amps handle the mains, center, and side surrounds. Can he do this? The answer to that question is yes. I mean,
Yes.
that's basic speaker amp assignment stuff.
Well, not every receiver lets
Really?
you do that.
So he wants the external amplifiers to do the mains, center, and side surrounds.
The main, center, and center.
Don't-
Not everything
What?
lets you do that because some of them don't.
Some
Some of them say I've got 7 amps or 9 amps built in, but the first 5 always have to be the main, center, and side surrounds. Not all of them let you divert it away.
I had no idea. I'll be honest with you. I thought that that's weird. Okay, but whatever.
But the Marantz can, so
Okay.
he's good.
So if yes, how does he set this up in the receiver menu? I mean, unless it's markedly different than anything else, you go to amp assign and you tell which one goes where, basically.
Yeah, actually, if you do the setup wizard, it actually guides you through this and should get you to the right spot. But if you don't want to do the wizard for whatever reason, or you've already done it and you just want to go back in, so you go to, of course, the setup menu. You go to the speakers and then the manual setup and the amp assign. And in there, you have to assign it as 11.1 to do what he wants to do. So the amp assign mode must be 11.1. You will choose the floor layout as being 5 channels and surround backs. You'll choose the height speakers as being 4. The height layout, which is your combination of whatever it is. If you've got top fronts and top rears, you choose that. If you have front heights and top rears, you choose that. Front heights and top middles, whatever the combo is. I don't know what yours is, but you'll choose that. And then the last one is pre-out. And there, the default is rear heights or top rears, whatever it is. That's the default for what must be sent to the pre-outs. But you can change that to front, left, right. And that's how you would do this. So what that allows you to do then is all of the pre-outs on the Marantz are always active. If you wanted to, you could have 11 external amps and connect all of them and use none of the built-in amps. That is always an option. What this pre-out setting is saying is, what are the speakers that the built-in amps will never power? That's the question it's really answering. And so you're saying the built-in amps will never power my front speakers as opposed to never powering my top rear speakers, because you just said you do want this receiver to power the top rear speakers. So you're saying it will never power the fronts. Those will always have to come out of the pre-outs. Then you have the option of using any other pre-outs that you want to, because they're always active. But that's the setup.
There you go. He's heard that the 7010 has issues with generating heat. Should you worry about this? Since we'll be using external amplifiers and therefore putting less strain on the built-in amps, will it lessen the heat output? I don't know for sure, because there are a lot of ways of generating heat in a receiver. Recently, we had a conversation with one of our listeners about the Onkyo that was heating up like crazy. Turned out it was the video processor?
The video processor.
That was doing it. If you turned off video processing, maybe it didn't really. Maybe it was always doing something anyways. But it was that was what was generating the heat. So there's if the amplifiers really are what's making it heat up, then adding external amplification can help. But then again, you just added another amplifier in there that'll be generating heat by itself. So how good is your other amplifier at not generating heat? Because it might actually make things worse. I don't know. But if it's not even that, if it's something else within the receiver that's doing it, then you're now going to have that heat source plus everything else. The short version of this is adequate ventilation, and you'll be good to go.
Yeah. No, I have an SR7010. I have not noticed it getting any warmer than any other receiver I ever had. It is cooler than the Onkyo receivers I had previously.
Because it wasn't on fire.
Now, I don't want to mislead anyone and yeah, well, no, mine never went on fire, but I don't want to mislead anyone and say it's not like this thing doesn't put any heat out. It certainly gets warm to the touch. You know, you put your hand over the top vent there. It definitely gets warm to the touch, but not like scarily or shockingly warm or anything like that. However, I'm not using the video processing, so maybe that would drastically increase the heat output. But more than that, I do think it's exactly what Tom mentioned with ventilation. A lot of people don't always consider it. They think of the top vents, right? They're like, oh, I got to have clearance for those top vents. But those are just the exhaust. The air is drawn in through the bottom and through the sides. And a lot of people will put their AV receiver into, you know, like a regular equipment stand that's only 18 inches wide, which essentially blocks those side vents. And that can start to make the receiver heat up. It's being able to draw the cool air in is just as, if not more important than being able to exhaust the hot air just by convection out the top of the thing. So a lot of people don't give proper ventilation space, particularly to the sides of the AV receiver, because there definitely is cool air being drawn in through the side vents. So as long as you do that, I haven't noticed it being any sort of problem.
I thought you were going to talk a few seconds longer. Hold on. I'm trying to open up the pictures. All right. His room is 21 feet long, 18 feet wide, and 19 feet high. His first row of seats is 12 feet from the front wall. Second row are 19 feet from the front wall, leaving him 2 feet to the back wall. I'm guessing these are mutable. We can't move these seats forward a little bit because it seems like it would make everything a lot easier if we can just move these seats forward a little bit. Anyways,
no, this theater is nicely set up, and it doesn't look like anything's really being moved around.
He's working with an AV installation company to do the new wiring and in-wall, in-ceiling speaker installation for Atmos, so he wants to nail down his plans. He's using GoldenEar Triton 1 and Super Center XXL front speakers, along with a rhythmic F15 HP subwoofer. One? Anyways,
just one.
He'd like matching Golden. Does he only have? Is this the guy with two seats in this theater, or is it somebody's?
No. This one has
That's what
two
I thought.
rows.
Okay, so I got a little confused there because the last thing.
Yeah.
He liked matching GoldenEar surround and overhead speakers. His issues are that he already has overhead can lights and HVAC ducts that are basically right about where he'd like to have his Atmos speakers, and with doors on the back wall, and the doors on the back wall are sliding doors, so in-wall surround back speakers will have to be wider apart than they might appear. So, what are our thoughts on the GoldenEar's MPX in-wall speakers versus their SuperSat on-wall speakers? And I'm going to open these pictures while you start talking about that.
Yeah, just going by the design of those MPX in-wall speakers, I'm not a big fan. I don't really think those make a whole lot of sense. The way they're designed is they have one folded ribbon tweeter sort of in the middle of the speaker, which is fine. But then they have two woofers, one above, one below, and the woofers are angled a little bit like a bipole speaker. That doesn't make any sense. Like, if you're going to make a design that's half bipole, half direct radiating, it would be the tweeters in the bipole orientation and a single woofer firing forward. That would make sense. The single tweeter with the angled woofers doesn't make any sense. That's just a weird speaker design. So given that you said the SuperSats are an option, and they should be, they're very slim and can mount flush on the wall and would actually work better on your back wall for surround backs anyway, since in-walls aren't really a terribly good option on that back wall, I would absolutely point you towards the SuperSats. You don't necessarily have to go for the SuperSat 50s. You could go for the smaller SuperSat 30s, particularly for sort of round backs. But I would go for the on-walls. You're already using on-walls surround and surround back speakers. These will be slimmer and more flush. So to me, that's the way to go. Yeah?
Oh, okay. Pocket doors. Now I'm getting it. I'm trying to figure out why his surround back speakers are so wide, and now I get it. They're pocket doors. All right. What about the Invisa HTR 7000 in-ceiling speakers versus the Invisa 650s? I don't know what these are.
Yeah, so the 7000s are the ones that are a little bit angled in their mount versus the 650s that are just your traditional circular downward firing in-ceiling speaker. What's going on here is, of course, being GoldenEar, they're using those folded ribbon tweeters. And those folded ribbon tweeters have narrower vertical dispersion. So they have wide horizontal dispersion, but narrower vertical dispersion, which means they don't completely adhere to what Dolby would really love for you to have, which is speakers that are just even 90-degree dispersion in every direction. And for that reason, whenever GoldenEar has set up their own Atmos demonstrations at trade shows and stuff like that, they've tended to use their 7000 speakers, because those already having the angle built in, you can put them in front of the audience, but then have the angle so that they're aiming a little bit more towards the seating area. If they're in the back, similar idea. So what I've typically recommended for people who want to set up a GoldenEar Atmos setup, particularly in a room like this where you've got the 2 rows of seats and you're almost certainly going to have one pair of in-ceiling speakers that are in front of all the rows of seats, is for the ones that are going to be your top fronts and are in front of your front row, I'd make those the HTR 7000s that are angled so they'll be aiming more at the seating area. Then for the top rears, or whatever's going to be, you know, slightly behind your front row or overhead of that rear row, I'd make those the 650s that are just firing straight down, because there's no really good direction to aim 7000 speakers at the back of the room. So I just make those 650s and I make the fronts that 7000. So I'd go for both.
So he asks, and I basically kind of answered this already, but where we suggest putting the Atmos speakers. For the top rears, you either have to go closer to the back wall or slightly in front of the rear row of seats. His surround back speakers, if you're not seeing the pictures, are very close to the ceiling already. And the kind of suggestion is about 5 feet difference between them. So if you know, you're going to have to try to, if they're going to be behind that rear row and there's only 2 feet between the rear row and the back wall, you're going to have to go further forward than that. So you might even just get these to be top middles and put them slightly, just a little bit behind the front row of seats and call them top middles, maybe. And then that might solve some of these problems right there. It still would be that downfiring speaker that he's talking about. The top fronts either have to go closer to the front row or closer to the front of the room, where they'd be more like front height speakers. Well, again, if you're angling them, you could actually call, if you're going to go top middle, can you call them top middle and top fronts? You probably can't, right? It'd have to be top middle and front heights.
You'd have to call them front heights.
So there you go. Problem solved.
Yeah, no, I agree with Tom, and I can certainly see what he means. Like, if you're looking at the images, those can lights and those 4 AC vents, I'm like, yeah, those are right about where you might want to put Atmos speakers. But, you know, since those are already there and you're not planning to move them, I would have the Atmos speakers closer to the front wall, farther away from the back wall than the can lights and the vents. So your top rear speakers would be closer to the front row as opposed to closer to the back wall. Like Tom says, maybe you'll end up calling them top middles. I mean, that you can just play with in the settings. So that's really no big deal. And then the top front speakers, again, I would have them closer to the front wall versus closer to the seats, in front of those ceiling can lights and vents. Yeah, that's what I'd do.
Can we talk about his front speakers being towed in so much? Can we talk about that? Because it's driving me nuts. Like, I'm looking at his pictures, the front speakers towed being in so much. They're towed way in. Are you seeing this? Are you seeing it?
Yeah, that might be a bit of an optical illusion, potentially.
I don't think it is. It doesn't look like an optical illusion. It looks like they're pointed, like they cross in front of these seats. Is that not? Am I seeing it wrong? That's the way it looks to me.
Possibly, although I don't even know if that's his absolute final setup, because we're just looking at a picture.
And you can see that he is going to have ventilation issues in this cabinet he's got. You're going to want to, if your AV guys haven't already done it, some sort of exhaust fan to pull air, you know, like an intake at the bottom and some sort of exhaust at the top to just like if you would think like a bathroom exhaust fan that would suck up this air out of here and then exhaust it someplace. Where would it exhaust it? To another room? To the I mean, you can't just exhaust it into the attic. It has to go like all the way to the roof if you do it that way. But you want to get this air moving through here to make sure that you are, if you're really worried about heat, make sure, unless there's like some depth to the left of this thing that I'm not seeing, which could very well be the case. That may just be a completely different room back there that he can access. I don't really know. Anyways, just make sure you got good ventilation there. So he asked, could he install 6 overhead speakers and just use some grouping of 4 of them together? He's confused why we say it's okay to have 2 pairs of side surround speakers, but we don't recommend the same idea for overhead speakers. Well, we don't do that for overhead speakers. Well, we say it's okay for side surrounds because everything from the left side of your room is all going to be the same sound. Okay, it's supposed to be diffuse. It's supposed to be non-localizable, usually. Okay, or not as localizable. So that's why we say it's okay, and it's because there's multiple rows of seats above you. Unfortunately, I mean, you could technically do this. You could do this, but you would want have your speakers sort of close together because you want the front ones to be in front of you and the back ones to be behind you and the middle ones to be on top of you. What you don't want is the middle one and the front one to be playing the same stuff. We don't want the middle one and the back one to play the same stuff because that's not doing the stereo separation. Just like I wouldn't say to you, you can double up on your left and right speakers if you want to. I can't even really come up with an analogy for this. But if you're going to double up on your left and right speakers, they'd have to stay close together. They have to be right next to each other. It would still be a bad idea, but they would have because you don't want diffuse sound up there. But if you took them and then took those and moved two of them closer to the center channel, so they're right next to the center channel, you'd be like, well, now I don't have stereo separation anymore. It's all just mono, basically, is what I'm getting out of this thing because I have taken the stereo separation out, and that's what we're going for overhead. Basically, is stereo separation.
Yeah, I mean, theoretically, like let's say you started with front heights. All right, the front heights are the front heights. You just leave them. Then let's say you put one pair of speakers directly above your first row of seats, and then you put another pair of speakers directly above your back row of seats, and you called all of those top middle, right? That wouldn't be too bad because for the front row, you've got those speakers directly overhead. You'll hear them directly overhead, and then you have another pair of speakers that are behind you playing the same thing. But we don't have an ear on the top of our head, so we don't actually like phantom image that. Right? It'll just sound really kind of diffuse up there. It's above me. It's really kind of fuzzy. But you'll sort of get that effect. And then for the rear row, it's like same kind of thing. It's like, well, I got speakers directly above me. That's primarily what you're hearing whenever top middles play. Then you also have speakers that are in front of you that are playing the same thing. So it all makes it kind of fuzzy. You don't phantom image those. But the front heights at the front of the room, those will always sound like they're in front of you. You could do that, but then the question is, why? Why do that when a single pair of top middle speakers that are just slightly behind the front row basically gives you the same effect? So it's more money for really no improvement in sound and a more complicated setup, and now you're series wiring them up there. So that's sort of the issue, is that it doesn't really give you any improvement in sound, whereas when they're the floor level speakers, they're the side surround speakers, if you're in that back row and you only have one pair that's somewhere in front of you, you really notice that they're in front of you, because we're really good at telling when sounds are in front of us at ear level. We're not very good at telling when sounds are directly above us, a little behind us, but above us, a little in front of us, but above us, all a little bit fuzzy up there because we don't phantom image above us very well at all. So it's because our hearing is more acute, it's better tuned to things that are closer to ear level, and particularly things that are at ear level and in front of us. We're really good at pinpointing those sounds. So to get the sounds coming from the side of you in that back row, you kind of have to have another pair of speakers back there. So that's more or less the explanation why.
So lastly, he says, looking at his pictures, he's installed some DIY absorption panels on the side walls and back walls. Do we think he has messed up with his current place? He's messed anything up with his current placement? Would we advise adding more or taking any of them away? He's happy with the way the room sounds, but he figures there's always room for improvement and optimization. I went to the wrong picture. I still went to the wrong picture. Yeah, so I think you did okay. I don't see anything blatantly wrong here. It's kind of the pictures are kind of hard to judge distances. There are two. There's a couple in the back corner back there, and that's fine. I don't know if they're doing a huge amount back there. They're not doing nothing. I might have put them.
And they're not doing any
yes,
harm.
I might have moved them into the room a little bit, but you clearly got a light switch or something on one side. There's something on the wall there in the back, and the other one you have it kind of mirrored image, so that's fine. The side walls, you have these massive panels. On the right side you have one, on the left side you have a door, so you can't really get away from that.
That's right.
It is non-optimal to have basically a first reflection point taken care of on one side but not the other. So if there's some way of putting something like literally on the door maybe, or whatever, so that you can cover that, get some absorption there. But the only thing that I really saw that if it were me, I would do is I'd put some absorption behind the front speakers, all three of the front speakers, if I could. If it was possible, if that was an option,
Yeah,
I would do that.
Yeah, I'm in 100% agreement. I definitely want to put your mind at ease. You haven't done any harm with what you've done. I wouldn't take away anything that you've done. I would try in some way to try to balance out that left wall first reflection point. If that means two panels, one panel that's hanging on the door itself and another panel that's hanging beside the door somewhere, that will still be better than just having the bare reflective door.
Or you could have a panel.
So I think
literally that's like on a stand or on rollers or casters or whatever that is
stand.
right on that, like kind of on that blank wall there. That's it's big and blank. It's kind of hanging out there, and then you just slide it over whenever you're doing movies or listening to stuff. Then people try to come to the door and there's going to be a panel in the way, but maybe you lock the door, don't let people in. That just sort of solves that problem. But something like that could possibly help.
But yeah, I mean, you can get smaller panels that could go right on the door itself. They don't have to be 2x4 panels. You could get a couple of 1x2 panels or something. But something to get some absorption onto that left wall, I think makes sense. And then I agree, behind the speakers on the front wall would also make sense. I don't think you need to go crazy. This entire room is carpeted. The furniture looks plush.
Yeah.
So I think once you've done that, the left wall and the front wall, you'll be good in good shape.
That's kind of where I'm at. Want your question answered? Send it to question@avrant.com. This is AVRant.
Now go out and listen to something.